Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're still doing okay. I, I see that some faces are a bit more tired than this morning, but we'll continue to be very alert because we have a very insightful panel, the last panel of the day, benefits and future potential of AI in work capacity assessment. This is our last panel with moderator Dr. Revoye, and I said it so nicely the whole afternoon, and now look at me, I look like a total novice. Dr. Vrasik, who is a cardiologist and has a diverse professional background spanning various roles in healthcare, research and academia. He's currently a senior HTA researcher at the Austrian Social Insurance at the Department of Healthcare Provision and Innovation in Vienna, focusing on medical devices and related frameworks regulations, including innovation, new technologies and health technology assessments regulation, and he's also a nominated member to the European Commission's Coordination Group on Health Technology Assessment for Medical Devices for Austria. Ladies and gentlemen, please meet our panel.
So hello, good afternoon to everyone. This is like in life, you go up, but then you go immediately down. This is what keeps us humble and learning. So welcome to this panel, which actually it's always very interesting to talk about the future. You never really know what it holds for us. And had we been asked what we think about our future in 2019 or very early 2020, well, not so many would have really been correct in guessing what comes to us. However, we hope that this will be more foreseeable, and we would be interested to discuss here with you on how might the artificial intelligence reshape the landscape of work capacity assessments within the social security and the welfare sector over the next immediate period of approximately 5 years. We will aim to be realistic, sane, optimistic, and try to give some examples and address challenges that come up with the discussion. For this, we have actually collected a very diverse panel of experts. So I would like to first invite Dr. Giovanni Briganti, who is a doctor of the Université Libre de Bruxelles with a PhD from the University of Mons and master's degree in total quality management from the Faculty of Engineering at the University of Mons. He's a specialist in artificial intelligence in health. That was actually the theme of his doctoral work. And he has taken over the coordination of the Federal AI for Health Working Group within AI for Belgium and coordinates numerous research and innovation projects in the field of artificial intelligence and digital health. At the University of Mons, he also holds the position of the chair of AI and digital medicine, offering the world's first compulsory AI courses in the medical curriculum. Welcome. Then I would like to invite Dr. Tatiana Klimchuk, who is a data scientist specializing in natural language processing and associate professor at the International University of Catalonia in Spain. She actually holds 2 PhDs, one in mathematics from the Polytechnic University of Catalonia in Spain, and one in applied mathematics from the Taras Shevchenko National University of Kiev in Ukraine. Over the past 5 years, Tatiana has led the artificial intelligence team at the technology consultancy in Barcelona, and she is now a co-founder of Somia Solutions, a cutting-edge artificial intelligence company specializing in the commercialization of deep learning algorithms. Welcome, Tatiana. Third, Dr. Bart Desmet, who is a computer scientist at the Rehabilitation Medicine Department at the National Institutes of Health Clinical Center. He leads the epidemiology and biostatistics section's work on natural language processing to foster access to and use of whole person functioning information for work disability assessment, clinical practice, and research. With a long track record of interdisciplinary research and his desire to see artificial intelligence implied for good, his research has focused on suicide prevention, online youth protection, mental health, disability, and patient-centered health outcomes. He obtained his PhD from Ghent University and has co-authored 40 peer-reviewed publications, co-organized the AI for Function, Disability and Health workshop series, and is a chair at the workshop of Computational Linguistics and Clinical Psychology. Welcome, Bart. And last but not least, I would like to invite Dr. Tina Manoharan. Tina was until recently global lead of data and AI at Philips and focused on advancing data and AI-powered solutions to actionable clinical, operational, and consumer health insights. She also led the data science and AI innovation team that supported Philips businesses and markets with the creation of smart connected devices, services, and solutions. Prior to Philips, Tina was a business leader, AI pathway companion for radiology, oncology, and cardiology at Siemens Healthineers, and she holds a PhD in computer science from Heriot-Way University from Edinburgh in the UK. Welcome, Tina. So, it is a bit challenging always so late in the day, and knowing that this and some more time is the only thing standing in between the cocktail after this, it will be a challenge. But I thank you for your energy. We have gathered here to maybe try to exchange some thoughts about the future. And we've heard a lot, especially on the data, and maybe as the first topic, we would be interested to know how can these AI applications actually streamline and enhance the accuracy of work capacity evaluations. This, of course, would benefit both those that perform them and those that benefit from them. But there are challenges, of course, we've heard through the day, and we can imagine some. So maybe first, a lot was already said in the first session about the data, especially the privacy concerns and what's available from the data, and maybe also if you have some examples or ideas. But Tatiana, what are your thoughts on the quality of data and getting us to have the solutions in the future that we want? Any ideas, examples?
Yeah, so first of all, that's always difficult from one side, being the last panel, because you have to bring some new information, and it's very easy because you always can refer to the two panels that we've already had. So I try to bring some new information and some value, and I think we're a unique, very unique panel, and I like it very much because we can bring the slightly different point of view from the persons who really implement their applications and the AI tools. And I'm actually the person who the different organizations come to me and said, please, can you make me AI? And we are starting wrong at this moment because AI cannot be the objective. AI is a tool, so you can't want just, if it's the only objective, you are doing wrong at the beginning. You have to have your own objective. If your organization is doing great, perfect, without AI, and you just want to do it because everyone is doing AI, don't do that. You are great. You are okay. You don't need AI at that moment. But it's not true. It's never happened. Every organization, any process can be improved. And so you seek for the improvement, no? So you have to come with the objective that can be reachable, that can be kind of measurable for me, because if you come to me and say the work capacity assessment, can you do it with AI? That's better, okay, because at least you don't do AI at all. You want to apply it to get better accuracy in work capacity assessment. Okay, that's great. And from here, we start to work with you as from the application side, and then I will go to the data, and when actually the data start to be very much important in this application. And I have here the cases, because I'm very bad with the names, so I have this written different cases. I came just from Mobile World Congress that was all about the AI, so I do have here the examples. But first I want you to understand what is actually important in this road of implementation. So follow me. We follow the example of in my case, it would be easier to the disability assessment chain. And if you do that, if you want to do this with AI, we've heard, no, in the previous panel, there was a thousands of suicide, no? There was the implementation of UK, the disaster. So probably this is something that we try to tackle that cannot be tackled with AI, at least at that stage. We need to go deeper. Let's take some very small example, and I follow also probably the Professor Keen, if I'm not mistaken, the example of the impairment. The impairment, it's a very specific part. We want to tackle only that part and only the easy part, okay? And then we have three options with you. Me as an implement and you to help me to get it correct, okay? So we have three options. The first option would be we have the information, or we have the barema that defined for each case, for each implement, and this is for different countries. It's a percentage of, it can be, and then now you will tell me that's not true, it's not that easy, but let us just imagine that it can be defined with 1,000 of different rules. We can do that, we can try to do that, and we don't need the data here. We can go ahead with the rule, there's no risk, it's 100% explainability, but it's not the case probably in such a complex problem what we work as. Even this kind of very specific part of only the impairment, if we have the multiple impairment, or if we have some kind of combination of different diseases that affect, or if the barema is text or interval, then we can go to the second part. And the second part where we do need the data. But a part of the data, we need the professionals. The professional that can sit with me and said, look, we take all these cases that we have, and we take a look at the results, and obviously we want to tell the model, or to tell the AI what to learn, and what the criteria to use, just what the criteria to look at. Okay, so probably we need to do some kind of similar factors, the gender, the age, the profession, okay? And so a lot of factors that we consider. It's introduces subjectivity, yes, yes, but at least we can understand where the model, we provide the model, the orientation where to look. And then the model, they are very nice in process a lot of the data. This is 1 million of the data that we have, and extract these patterns, and that we've heard a lot of times. So what they do is that they look for the similar cases, the average set cases, and provide you some evaluation. Then you said, yeah, but probably but we don't know. We have the explainability. We have the algorithm that provide you the explainability, that provide you the role that they follow. And it's already adopted by the industry. It already can be used. How? As a suggestion, or as a helping, if you have the several experts, the several answers, and you want to have like kind of generalized opinion by the AI, you can do that. And this is working solution, and this is it's very expensive because you have to have the data, the very healthy data, the processed with together with the specialist and with the experts. So this solution, it's kind of it works, but it needs a lot of effort. And then finally, we have the third stage where all the organizations that have a lot of data that like this third level very much, because they said, we have a lot of data, vast amount of data. Just take this data and train the model. And here the deep learning comes. Yeah. So it's a very, very big excuse, but the low cost, you don't need to do anything. You don't need to indicate, you don't need the expert, because you give the model the power to take this data, and the model learns whatever it wants to learn from this data, and just provide you the output. And in industry, it's already adapted, and the most successful startups is actually using deep learning over the machine learning, this second approach. And the result, the accuracy is incredibly high. So you move from the 60% to 99.9%. So if you do this with the detection of bacteria, you don't need the explainability. But with the deep learning and all these the beast models, that are LLM models is one of the case, when you don't know what do they learn. And here, this is very much important actually, because the future that all will pass through deep learning or these kind of models. So the data here it's very, very much important, it's my point of view, that here we need to ensure that all the knowledge that has to be learned from these cases has to be represented in the data in the correct manner, and this is the only way that we can ensure that the model can learn what we want it to learn, and we don't tell what we want it to learn.
Thank you for this interesting overview, and you've summed it up to give a perspective. But data is just one aspect. There is also the part, for example, the algorithms. Giovanni, you mentioned in our discussions also that good algorithms, do they really always mean good implementation? How does it look like?
Thank you, and thank you for your viewpoint, which was really interesting. So I wasn't here this morning, so I don't know what you said before me. I will try to, well, at least bring something to the table that might help you into moving things forward. I wasn't here this morning because I work as a psychiatrist during the day. That's my true job, and then I do all the rest for fun. As you know, mental disorders are a biopsychosocial thing to consider, and I will make my point in a very brief way. Something that is not working right in work capacity assessment is that it is a static thing that is repeated over time. And me as doctor, I evaluate work capacity every day when I consult patients, especially with mental disorders being one of the most prevalent causes for impairment. And this is what gets me the most. And now we'll talk about how AI can come in. Whenever we receive a letter from the insurer, the one that has to evaluate the impairment for a patient, the patient has a kind of setback. We have had an improvement for a couple of consultations first, and then the patient comes in and says, I received a letter, but please, I'm not doing well. I've had this, and that. And anxiety comes in because there is an evaluation, and work capacity assessment is understood by the patient as a kind of an exam that has to be done over and over and over again. Now, where AI comes in is that we need to shift from a kind of, although frequent, cross-sectional and observational way of doing work capacity assessment and embracing the dynamics that is the evolution of a work capacity that goes hand in hand with how the patient evolves with his or own diseases, but also, well, that is the biological part, but also psychosocial and environmental characteristics. And this is my main point. AI comes in because it fully embraces that dynamical aspects. And therefore, we need to also not only consider population models that give us with algorithms, but also to embrace more personalized and dynamical temporal algorithms that take into account the way that if the patient will evolve, the evolution will make sense according to the model because the model will be developed onto the patient. And from there in healthcare, we have many, many examples that work towards that. For instance, diabetes care is fully implemented within the patient to observe how glycemia evolves and to make sure that the patient has what it deserves. Now, even if we got a perfect algorithm, the implementation of such algorithm, as you were saying, is not equal to a perfect implementation. Now, if we start to focus on algorithms for work capacity assessment, then we also need to consider the fact that we need to consider what the machine is saying to us. And to what extent do we consider it? Now, a recent study adopted an algorithm in a healthcare setting that was almost 100% reliable for predicting an adverse effect. And what happened is that even though the algorithm was really performant, outcome didn't improve. And why did it improve? Because the outcome occurred during the weekend, for instance, and nobody was there to take care of it because the medical doctor decided not to go with the implementation that was suggested, because the nursing team didn't trust signal that was proposed. Now, there might be many reasons that we can adopt that we couldn't before, and that could lead to the fact that even if an algorithm is really performant, it might not work. So these are my two starting points. First, let us embrace the dynamics of work capacity that is a lifelong process that starts with the start of the career, that ends with the end of the career, and goes even beyond that. And that is linked to biopsychosocial and environmental aspects. And second, we need to use AI to embrace that aspect, but also let us be concrete about the shortcomings of such algorithms and the way that they are implemented. And for that, we need to care for the healthcare professionals and the professionals for work capacity assessment. That is my second point.
Thank you so much. This is actually very insightful, because usually kind of like a few years back with everything stopped with the discussion and said, no, I cannot do this because of GDPR and I cannot do anything. Now today the magic word is the algorithm, so it has two faces like everything else. Thank you. Tina, in your experience, which is then presents another point of view from so far Giovanni and Tatiana, what is maybe one or two lessons that you've learned? To understand that there were some insights from having really bad data to work with?
Yeah. Talking about lessons learned, maybe let me build upon what both of you said. So first of all, Tatiana mentioned about give me all the data and I can share the insights. One of our first learnings as MedTech, right, when we went to clinicians, hospitals, really to get access to data, you cannot go there and say, give me the data and I will show you insights. Which data to do what, right? So first of all, starting with the learning, really address what is the need you're trying to address, right? What is the challenge? What is the pain point? And then work backward from there to really think through what data do you really need, and think about it comprehensively before you start going and asking for data. Now, why did we learn that lesson? For instance, we collected data. Typically what we do is we go to 2 or 3 academic centers, get access to data. We think we have the best data. And then we soon realize, actually, we didn't collect all the data we needed. We missed certain parameters. The algorithm is not good enough. How do we now get these additional values? How do we get the, we have the imaging data in the reports, but we don't have the pathology data in the reports. For the ground truth. Or we don't have data from the EMR. We don't know if the patient had comorbidities. We're missing that information. Now, we cleared everything, right legal basis, getting access to data, but we missed those parameters. Now we have to go back. Bad design thinking up front, right? Then we realized with another couple of hospitals, we got access to data, and then suddenly they were hesitant to share that because they recognized that their own physicians were taking diagnostic decisions before all the information was there. So suddenly they said, oh my God, we can't share this. We just realized that. And in another case, they even realized, like in a multidisciplinary tumor board, there was missing information as well. And again, there they made decisions. So they said, we cannot give that. Now we're going to give you scrambled data. We said, what's that? Oh, we're going to get bits from this patient, bits from that patient. Well, that's not going to help us, So key learning, really, really think through what is the problem you're going to solve. And really work backwards, think about the data design, what data you need, how are you going to ensure variability. Again, no point if we have 10,000 stack of very similar data. Well, we miss some of the outliers, we don't have that. So really have a good data design, that was very important. In addition to the discussions we had in the panels in the morning, 3 things as learnings. We tried new approaches, like federated learning. I didn't hear that in the morning, but it's a difficult approach. We're trying to do that, meaning you don't need to take data out. Can we actually train the model at the site? And we are doing such an approach with a collaboration of 5 or 6 clinics to see for lung cancer, can we actually train the model at the site? Because then you don't need to take the data. A lot of the privacy concerns we can also reduce. So that's also an approach. Second, synthetic data. I heard that was mentioned earlier, synthetic data. Again, you don't want to create synthetic data and artificial results, right? You use the synthetic data really wisely for those outlier cases where it's really difficult to get the data, and you're really trying to test the robustness of the algorithm. So with new generative AI, we can also create synthetic data, which we're really recognizing is valuable. Maybe my last point here, with this new generative AI approach, we talked about ChatGPT, but ultimately, generative AI is powered by this concept of foundational models. These models that are trained with large amount of data, whether it's an internet, clinical trial data, EMR data, which is helpful. It's enabling us to do things at a faster pace, which we couldn't do before. Because otherwise, we needed tons of data. And now we're saying, okay, the foundational model, for me, it's like having a foundation for a house, and now you're trying to train it to get the first floor, right? So similarly, it's really helping us boost, which we couldn't do that for many use cases before. So let me share that as my first learning, building upon what also Tatiana already said. But I think let's go into some examples before we talk more.
Thank you, very insightful. It reminds me in a way of learning when you are planning a clinical trial. Unless you think of the design well in the beginning, there is no amount of statistics or limitations or confounding explanation later on that can save you. So it applies pretty much here. Thank you. But there is something happening, and there are solutions that are being developed. And despite all these shortcomings and difficulties, Bart, I understand that NIH is developing AI solutions to improve the disability determination process at the US Social Security Administration. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I'd be happy to. Thank you for having me. First, I'll give a little bit of background, because obviously the US Social Security system is not the same as the European ones, but it is mostly founded on the same principles. So when disability benefits are awarded, that's done using a complex business process where an adjudicator decides based on electronic health records, reviews, and consultative examinations whether a person should be granted benefits or not. Unlike in most European countries, or maybe all, that's a binary decision, so you either get them or you don't get them. There's no percentage that is allocated. And 15 years ago, the Social Security Administration, so the SSA, approached the NIH to ask for help improving their process, because they were facing a number of issues that I think European Social Security administrations also face, which is their workforce was aging, or they had trouble hiring people. They had a high caseload, and they had long backlogs that they couldn't process quickly enough. And they also got a lot of successful appeals, which pointed to problems with accuracy in their decisions. And at NIH, we are currently focusing on 2 AI-supported applications where we focus on functioning information. The first one is we're building an AI support tool for EHR review. So it's a natural language processing-based system that can scan the records, extract and locate all the information about functioning. So, for example, if it's written somewhere that a patient is able to walk up the stairs or is able to walk 500 feet or meters with a walker, it would detect that information, and then it would classify it according to a standard, which is the ICF. So that tool is really meant as a support tool, not as a replacement, for human adjudicators that have to process hundreds of pages for each case, on average have 8 hours to process them, so you can't really expect these people to thoroughly review the entire record. So having this AI-supported system to get at information that they would be interested in to help them make the right decision is what that application is oriented at. And the second one, which is called the WD-FAB, is a computerized self-assessment tool or instrument to assess a person's functioning. And where the AI, or AI is a broad umbrella term, of course, like where the computer comes in is that it makes it a really fast instrument to apply. So first of all, it's self-administered, so it doesn't require any medical expert, which also makes it very cheap. It's a questionnaire that is adaptive and that asks the person a question, like a baseline question, and then depending on the responses, it would ask questions that indicate higher or lower functioning, and basically triangulates where a person is in terms of functioning for each of the 8 scales that it measures. So things like basic mobility, fine motor function, sociability, so both physical scales and mental scales are represented in that. So it basically gives a snapshot of how a person functions across the whole spectrum of functioning. The benefit of such a tool is that you can do it many times cheaply. So getting at what you were talking about earlier, that it's important to recognize that functioning is not stable over time. Like we do see a lot of potential for having that be a way of understanding where people are, for doing triage, for doing follow-up assessments, that kind of thing. And this tool has been validated both, internally, like seeing whether like test-retest validation has been done. It has been compared to medical evaluations, and it's also been translated in Europe. So it's been translated in Belgium into French and Dutch, and it's also being translated in Sweden, I believe. So we hope that this will help in standardizing the collection using, with AI support. And again, I want to stress that both of these applications, unlike some applications that were talked about earlier today, are really there to support human decision-making rather than replace it, because that's not where we are at or should be at.
Thank you. This is very interesting, and actually using the OIMAS network in Europe, now that we know of the countries, I think it will be stimulating further discussions that are also led to know. Thank you. Very interesting examples. Tina, you mentioned before that you would maybe bring us one or two examples.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
Maybe just a couple. So first, building on what Giovanni was saying about outcomes, and I remember, like, when you're talking to oncologists, really thinking about what their need is at the time of making a decision in a tumor board, where you're really looking at the patient 360 data, we said, okay, what would really help you? He said, many of the cases I can make a good decision, or the multidisciplinary team can, but what is difficult for us is, can you show me other similar patient cases? What decision did we take there? So we're like, okay, so the AI really automatically extracting the information, showing other similar patient cases. Then we said, okay, what are the parameters? From a point of transparency, he said, I want to see what parameters went in to decide on that similarity, right? So I can tune it. It's in my control when we're making the decisions. Okay, great. Give them the flexibility of choosing the parameters, right? And then said, actually, what is missing is, I don't know the outcome of the past decisions. I want to know the outcomes. That's where it's going to help me. So he said, okay, what do you mean? Like, what happened to the decision and what happened to the patient after that, right? So did the condition get better? Did they have complications? Was there a readmission? Or, did they have like other dysfunctions? I want to know that. That's what's going to help me. And that's really augmenting my experience, right? Because don't just try to do things which I can do myself. Okay, so we slowly enhanced that. We got to really learn that, show them the outcomes, right? So they said, okay, now that's getting better. And then they went beyond that and said, but that's great. I have the knowledge from myself. I have the knowledge of my peers. In this hospital, we are top 5 physicians, which is great, but I don't know what the other network, in my hospital network, what their decisions were. Because certain conditions, maybe we've seen only 2% of the cases or 3% of the cases, but I can learn from my network. So, step by step, really thinking about what is really going to help and augment their decisions was really part of that learning to create those solutions. And last but not least, maybe also to add, like, the patient-reported outcomes was such a relevant aspect, and the patient preferences, taking that into consideration into the decision-making was so important, and that was also a big part of the journey. Maybe I'll end with one more example, just to also touch upon the latest and innovations in generative AI, what that offers, what we're already researching, many of the medtech companies, is how can you quickly create an impression of a report? Imagine you're doing a diagnosis. you can do it first yourself and maybe get the AI assistant, or you can do that in parallel, right? So it depends on how simple or complex the case is. But what we're trying to do is, can you automatically create an impression of the report? You know, it really saves a lot of time. Plus, if the physician has missed something, it will show you that information and even add that to the report. And last but not least, what this technology gives you is this whole natural language way of communication, which is amazing. You know, you're not even entering information, you're not drawing the contour, you're saying, show me that. Show me, highlight any abnormalities maybe I have missed quickly, you know? And that, again, you know, the cognitive burden, like at the end of the day, if they're tired, and if you get this kind of assistance, is so helpful, and that too doing in this natural conversation way. So those are some of the outlook, the new areas that we're researching, while giving an example of the, like the tumor board example, where we are already having solutions for oncology.
Thank you for this optimistic prospect. It sounds to me, well, the future is, well, like in Star Trek, great, you talk to the computer and it does stuff for you. And it's, but this is really, it's interesting to know the examples, how they reflect in the applications so far. And it's been really very interesting, but we've come today several times to the point that work capacity assessment has very unique demands. And those needs, of course, need to be addressed by the different AI solution providers. A lot has been also said that such solutions should be among all user-friendly and reliable. And Giovanni, you've just come from another day of handling patients. You have some thoughts on how the user experience and education and maybe solutions depending on their, well, openness to the world, how they would affect this? What are your thoughts on this?
We were the first in Belgium to do 2 national surveys for both specialists and general practitioners. We surveyed the whole population of medical doctors, and we are continuously redoing that survey on the adoption of artificial intelligence and the outlook that healthcare practitioners have on AI tools. The results were quite stunning. They are both aligned, specialists and generalist practitioners, which gives us an outlook on what HCPs do think about AI. Our own survey, the one done in Belgium, that was the first one, is quite more positive than others that were done in other countries. Because we in Belgium have a lot of activities going on that really puts us forward in terms of AI adoption in healthcare practice. So what are the thoughts on that? HCPs do view AI as a positive thing and are interested into AI adoption. Of course, we in Belgium, as any other countries, we do have a small part and small percentage of healthcare practitioners that are reluctant to the adoption of AI. But it is a small percentage, but that does a lot of noise. It's like anti-vaccination people. And when it comes to artificial intelligence, it is really important to gather that for physicians, at least what we gathered for our survey was, they want AI to first improve the quality of care. And that was a strong message that was sent to us by the survey results. The second is to reduce the amount of time passed through administrative tasks and low added value tasks. And third, to support the overall organization management of the healthcare institution. So these 3 main points, let's all other healthcare stakeholders be aligned to what are the needs of healthcare professionals. Why am I saying that? Is that recently, and when I say recently, it was a week ago, we presented the results of the similar survey we did with the pharmaceutical sector. And the vision is sometimes the opposite. We see that different stakeholders in healthcare have completely different perspectives on what the AI priorities are. But as long as we do not focus on the healthcare professionals, that is, I'm saying the main stakeholder when it comes to first line, second line healthcare, things will not go on. So to answer your questions, yes, we are in need for AI solutions that do meet the needs of the professionals, but we are also in need, that is my my whole career on the line, is to bring over proper education to those who use AI tools. And this wasn't evident at first. Way before all the papers were coming out saying that we should educate healthcare practitioners to the field of artificial intelligence, I was being said, Giovanni, you do not need to educate physicians on AI because they will be too dumb to understand it. That is why I made it my mission. And the results are stunning, and this you should know. I've been teaching medical students the first mandatory courses that exist in the world on artificial intelligence, and I get similar results at the end of the course as I would get with engineers, because I also teach engineers. And this is a message to say that, yes, AI providers should make more user-friendly solutions. That is just like common sense, right? But the design, the methodology, the data collected, the common sense of AI solutions in healthcare and all the related aspects of it, including work capacity assessment, will come from the healthcare professional side. And we cannot achieve that if we do not care for healthcare professionals and those who work in healthcare. That is my main message.
Thank you, and it's also something to reflect upon and bear in mind going forward, but that's not the only set of needs. I understand that there is a, Bart, you have in our discussions, you've mentioned that you see a need also. Medicine is supposed to cure the whole person, right? And I don't think that you're too convinced that this is happening in reality these days. What are the improvement points and thoughts on this?
Yeah, so our focus is very strongly on whole person functioning and whole person functioning information. So just as a primer, for those not familiar, whole person functioning is like the product of a person's biophysiological limitations and determinants and their environmental constraints or supports. And that is what determines what they can still do and what they can't do anymore. And this is also what people tend to care about. Like, they don't care about their blood pressure per se, they care about what that blood pressure allows them to do or disallows them to do, right? So they're seeking health for their well-being, for their capacity to do certain activities, not so much to solve a certain biophysical problem. And it also determines their capacity to work. So it's a logical place to think about collecting information from a work capacity assessment perspective. And obviously, you all know this. This is how work capacity assessment works. But this is not how the medical field typically works. So exchanging information and making information about functioning interoperable is possible, but it's not being done at the moment. So for diseases, there's the ICD. Everybody in the medical field and probably outside of it knows this. It's a very useful tool to collect information, to predict, like to do international studies. So it's very standardized. It's a very valuable way of coding information and exchanging it that way. The same exists for functioning. It's called the International Classification of Functioning, Disability and Health. It was endorsed by the WHO in 2001, but its adoption has been slow. And it's not surprising because, first of all, it's not what is expected to be collected by medical experts. Like, they typically operate in the in their specialty, which is typically ICD-based. And it's also very hard to capture because it's a very multidisciplinary endpoint of interventions at the body system level. So, in, again, work capacity assessments, this is not, this is not such a foreign perspective. It's not a foreign perspective in rehab, which is also focused on improving functioning. But what we hope to do is develop AI tools that improve the adoption of the capture of that kind of information, of structuring that kind of information, coding it automatically to the ICF, so that it can be used for not only work disability assessments. Again, the use case I mentioned earlier is to basically extract that information to to present it to the adjudicator, so he or she doesn't have to look for it as much, but also to convert the unstructured data in nodes into structured data, which can then be used again by AI tools or decision support tools to do predictions, such as the likelihood to return to work or whatever other use case you have in mind. And the benefit of doing it in like multiple stages is that it's also adding explainability. So that was another topic that was talked about earlier. Doing a black box model that takes in like the base variables and predicts a very refined outcome, it can be very powerful, it can be very accurate, but if you can't explain how it got there, it's unlikely to be adopted or trusted. Whereas if you can go from the base information, go to intermediate variables such as a person's capacity to do certain things, and then take that and do prediction on, okay, given this and given the history of this, we expect to see improvements, or we don't expect improvements. You can make your predictions much more interpretable. So I see benefits for this definitely in the work capacity assessment sphere, but more broadly, our hope is that we can actually bring about the use of functioning information, the capture of functioning information in the medical field more broadly, so that they can use it as outcomes in studies rather than just the more biophysical ICD codes that they typically focus on now. And then if that focus shifts, hopefully fewer people would end up on the disability roles in the first place. So that's the hope.
Thank you. This is very interesting because you mentioned also the development of such solutions, and this is also something we are looking at now that we have some needs that we've identified. And quite often what seems to be failing is the adequate level of collaboration in this development between the users, those that would be using this system, and the deployers, and of course the developers that are actually building the system. Having the perspective of the next 5 years and so on, do you see this being adequate? If not changing for the better, is it likely to be much better at 5 years' time? What are your thoughts?
So we're talking about collaboration between developers and users. I think this is essential, and it's also recognized in the UMass AI report. It's one of the recommendations that for AI solutions to be accepted, not only accepted, for them to be useful, there needs to be collaboration from the very beginning. And obviously Giovanni and everybody here will underwrite this, that there's sometimes this, I feel, perception that AI is cheap and fast, like it's like a cheap or fast or both fix, which I don't think it is, any of those things. It's actually very hard work to do the interdisciplinary conversations, and they're hard conversations, to align what AI can do, where it is desirable, and how it would be implemented. So that takes a lot of time and takes resources. And it's also not a quick fix, because once you have developed such a tool, you actually can't stop there. Like, you have to continually monitor whether it's still giving you the outcomes that you expect, that it stays up to date with, changes. It's been mentioned before that AI can't learn after it's been deployed. If you don't change it anymore, it can't, depending on the architecture that you use. But obviously, you would want to have, some governance in place where you continually monitor that your AI is doing what it's expected to do. So that also costs money and makes it less of a quick fix as it is sometimes presented as.
Thank you. Very interesting, because what is often seen is that there are really discrepancies also in what the solutions offer and what is indeed usable, and I think a lot of that discrepancy comes from actual lack of this communication in the early stages especially. So this is, but when we had a discussion on this, Tatiana, you also said that you would have a thought on the adoption of a process of technology and so on. Would you share that thought with us?
Yeah,
this context?
I just said I just get back from the Mobile World Congress that was in Barcelona. That's the biggest event when normally the huge providers of the new technology, they present the new achievement there, and there was the Samsung that presented the new Ring, there was the smart glasses, smart everything, and that's a technology congress actually with 100,000 of participants. There was a huge event, and it was about AI. So if you don't have AI somehow implemented, that your technology is outdated. And so I have here stressed some applications. They are quite interesting. They can give you the clue that where are we going and where we would be, because that's kind of congresses that give us the kind of where we have to look to. It's going to be not adopted in 5 years, probably, but it's actually kind of the vector that we can have. And another observation that I have is that we have the huge adoption of AI recently. And this percentage that we've heard, 33% of the people in Belgium that already uses AI. So this adoption will increase in time. And then the people, the users will realize that they can trust AI, that it works somehow. And so then, when you said that the patient, that we should have the relation between the patient and doctor, we should give the explainability. But then we will arrive to the moment when the patient will say, no, I don't care. I just want the result of the AI because it works. It works in all the cases that I saw. And it's cool. I've already do that when I go to the dentist, and if the dentist show me that the AI has detected the caries, I believe that then when the doctor said to me, we need to treat this, I believe it because it's proof for me, and I believe, and I know that this technology is adopted, it's ready for use, and it's kind of support the decision, which I also believe the dentist, but they also can treat all of my problems that probably it's not necessary. This is just an example, but there will be a lot of such examples that will make us to use the AI. So the real cases, one which 6 days ago, so it's very recent, the Google presented the patient as a new AI for the diagnosis, communication, and information relationship with the patient. We have to understand what it means, we have to understand how it can be applied, but just for you the fact that has been presented. 149 actors playing patients texted live with one of 20 primary care doctors, or LLM presented by Google, which is called Emmy. You can go and Google it. And so then they rated quality based on 33 characteristics, and the Emmy beats the doctors over 28 over 33 characteristics that they defined. This is what we have at this moment achieved with the recent achievements of the generative AI, and it's already worked. Another what been presented in the Mobile World Congress, WISP application, that there are plenty of people that just struggle to speak by phone, to speak with the people. Especially if it's not the native language, they have this ability of stress that cannot explain themselves. So this WISP application is created to create the voice. It's create your script or implement what you want to say, but with a different voice or with a different language, or so you just kind of can create the sound that you prefer, that you want to sound. It's kind of simple application, but you get my point. Then we have the eye tracking, when you can control the applications with the eye. This is a new technology. This is a new application. The IBM Watson Health that we should understand if we can apply, but just to understand the direction. Customer assistant, citizen assistant, with any kind of assistant that can look at the information, that can provide the guidance, that can answer the question. Some notes, automated application that can highlight the concept, that can highlight the biased concept, or some that can use a summary automatic. They can make the transcription of this meeting, and they can do the summary and action points and some of concerns that can do this automatically for us, better or worse. This already happened, and it's already in implementation. And and much more. And the final example that I consider interesting for you to check, it's the DHealth startup, it's called DHealth, that provides actually the platform where the patient can provide its own data for storage to make the only the unique database for all their data. For example, in my case, during my life, I have changed like 5 or 6 countries, and it's impossible for me to get all the medical statement from the different medical institutions that I've been past. I changed 3 workplaces. I don't know where my data is. I mean, I have no idea. I have it in the paper somewhere. I have access, obviously, to all the health system of each country. I have this to each private health companies. But I don't have it structured. So there are a lot of startups who's actually doing this simple just for patient, and then I can sell this data, I can give this data to the institutions to do the research, or I can keep it for myself. When the time comes, I can take all this data and do whatever I want to do with this data. This was my short summary. And yeah.
Thank you. It's been very inspirative examples, and we have to be wary of the time. Tina, you mentioned you would also have a short example to share on this discrepancy?
Maybe to wrap up on your point and where Bart started off initially, it's this multidisciplinary collaboration way of creating the solutions, right? And I talked about oncology scenario, but at that point, what we missed is also including the patient. So that was one of the key learning we had. And the way we did that is we did observe a lot of the clinician-patient interaction. So they allowed us to observe that. And that was so important because in our context of the discussion here as well, we talk about the physician's view, but they're making decisions which are also impacting the claimants. So how do we take them also along in the creation of the concept? And that was also a big learning when we did solutions for healthcare providers and patients. And maybe the second thing that Bart also mentioned was about the monitoring, right? So again, a learning over there. For those who took examples of ChatGPT also in the morning, you know that you have this like or don't like, that it's kind of way of giving feedback. And that's so important also to have this continuous monitoring for us when you talk about post-market surveillance and so on. Really making sure that we understand where the solutions are not working in the real world. I mean, it's for a fact that no matter how high you try to get the precision up, during the creation, it's never going to be the same when you roll out. So and what is very important is to really think through how do you monitor the solutions, how do you get feedback so you can make them more robust. And with new like generative AI kind of examples, reinforcement learning, which is a method of giving feedback and using that is so important, or other ways is really getting outlier data, retraining and redeploying. And those are really important for creating user-friendly solutions.
Thank you. Very insightful as well. Another topic that we've come through is basically that what we want with these AI solutions that come into work capacity assessment, that they have the properties of fairness, transparency, inclusivity, and that they still ensure that those evaluations are both comprehensive and, well, as devoid as possible, ideally completely of any bias there. However, the question is if this is reality and will the future of this be such. Tatiana, in our discussions, you mentioned a responsible AI concept. Could you, in 1 or 2 sentences, maybe just try to explain what would that encompass? And how it would help?
Yeah, very fast. It's a concept that has to be aligned with explainable AI. So it's a cohort of the different concepts that we have to take in mind when we implement and integrate AI. Yes, and we try to speak about ethic. We try to speak about bias. AI is not ethical. And you can't apply the ethic concept on the AI. AI is a tool. We have to be ethical, we have to be responsible, and we have to be objective, because we are responsible for the integration of the AI, for the implementing this solution, for the providing this solution to the user. So you can't provide these human characteristics to AI. It's not conscious. It's not it has only the potentially positive objective to help us, because that's a tool to help. The navigator is not ethical. So the responsible AI, it's actually the set of the methods or the set of the concept that we as a humans has to ensure to create the tool that is not biased, no, that it has the representative data, that actually brings value, and it's actually really important, since the AI and all the algorithms that are changing so fast, that we see every day. We see a lot of different applications, and so we do have to have this in parallel, this different conversation that is going on, that what is the level of the responsibility, what is the methods that we can take into account to provide this ethical part of the implementation.
Thank you. And it sounds like a great guiding principle in making those solutions. And before we actually come to kind of the closing points, maybe just two short excursions. Giovanni, you come from practice. This is very valuable to us. And you have some examples in mental health use cases. What's the practice? Is this achievable? Or tell us a bit about this.
Well, in mental health, the difference with the rest of medicine is that we do not know what mental disorders are. And mental disorder sciences hasn't advanced much in the past 40 years at all, to the point in which even pharma is leaving the mental health sector. And so AI, and this is my research domain, I collect patient data with their consent, of course, and I try to model what the disease looks like at patient level, at subpopulation level, diagnostic level, and then cross-diagnostic as well. Because first we need to understand what it is, how it presents, and how we can treat it best. And therefore AI tools can help us identifying subgroups of patients, identify patterns of relationships among symptoms and signs of mental disorders, and can help us also identify the right pattern for treatment. And that is really important. But to be taken seriously in this world, we need also to deep dive into the techniques. And some AI techniques do not apply to mental health. We need to be more complex, and we need to be more comprehensive than simple prediction and simple classification, for instance. And therefore, this is my research topics. We produce personalized models for follow-up in mental health. We produce population models for psychiatric epidemiology, and many tools exist right now on the business side, but do not really apply to what we as physicians that work in mental health need. And the business is so filled up with solutions that deal with the light stuff of mental health, but that is not what we encounter in practice.
Thank you. And it's also, but something can also be done to help and maybe to have the results better aligned with expectations. Bart, you mentioned that you would have a tip 2 or 3 on how that can be done.
Yeah, I guess the main tip would be to lower expectations to a degree. When I was reading the UMass report, like one of the comments I read was that there was this expectation of, by some, of an unbiased, always accurate AI, and only then can it be useful. That's an unrealistic requirement. I think that's become clear today. But humans are also very limited. Like when a person has to do a review of a case, they have time constraints. They're slow. I mean, computers are very fast at certain things. They have their implicit, potentially explicit biases, and they're prone to fatigue, as I'm sure we're all aware right now. So I think AI can be deployed specifically to help address those human limitations. And 2 specific use cases that I can think of is record review and quality assurance. So basically using AI to see whether there's consistency in human decisions, because I'm sure we would find that there is actually not as much as we would hope. So that's where I see alignment.
Thank you. We've run out of time, but we still have one closing point to do, and I would invite you, the panel, now to do in 30 seconds each. Try to say 2 points, if you can. So what would you predict in 2024 and above that would be most likely adopted widely, or what would be the key to acceptance? No, not longer than 30 seconds, we still have the Q&A afterwards. Thanks.
Well, I look at it from the perspective of both sides. So on one hand, we have to help the professionals. On the other hand, the claimants or the patients. So I believe that patients like us are more and more in control of our own health. So we would want those insights to be better prepared, even for a conversation with the physician, and know how to manage our own health. So I believe that will grow. And on the professional side, I believe that, just like we've accepted Alexa or Siri or a navigator in the car, I believe that there will be more and more acceptance. Don't start very broad, just take few examples, think through it end to end, and I believe the adoption will grow.
Thank you.
I'm hopeful that in the next few years, AI can serve as this catalyst to support a shift towards more attention to functioning, not just in work disability assessment, but in the medical field more broadly, so that we can keep more people healthy and well for longer.
Thank you.
AI will self-improve. In the time. AI is already self-improving based on the new data that arrive, but in 5 years, AI will self-improve by itself by learning from its mistakes. So, and this is a prediction. Yeah, and it's opened a very new horizon of the AI.
Thank you.
I will be more neutral. I do think that 2024 will be the year in which we adopt LLM for medical records, and they will explode. In the next 5 years, we will simultaneously have 3 trends, to my point of view. The first is that we are heading towards a replication crisis in AI for healthcare. So we'll have some years in which the accuracy of AI models will not translate to different populations to which they were developed in. The vast majority of literature is heading that way. So we have a methods crisis in artificial intelligence that is coming. The second trend, now the 2 more positive trends, is that the first, we will have more personalized models for prevention, which is something that all European countries suck at. And third, the use of AI as a global tool to help the doctor in many, many ways. Those are my 3 trends and predictions.
Thank you. I would like to thank the panel. Very insightful short points. We have to say goodbye to Giovanni because he has a session now. So the Q&A will start now. If you have a minute for a short question, somebody wants to ask that. Yeah, so if there is any question for Giovanni, this has to be now and has to be short. If not, you go and get ready for this, and thank you for coming, and also thanks for the kind invite. And we continue the rest. It's been a very... It's actually been very inspiring, because talking about the future is never easy. And one of the things that is always said is that you can talk about the future, but in the field of AI, this is most ungrateful, because you don't really know what counts. But we've nevertheless explored this concept and some ideas for the future. It will be interesting if there is an event like this. What will we see that came true and what not? What was the learnings? And we cannot know this at the moment. So this is great, and the call for the questions is open. So we have good 10 more minutes, 15, use them. You have the experts here from various fields. Please.
Okay. So thank you very much for the panelists, and it was a very interesting debate. We talked a lot about bias, and the less the AI solutions will have bias, the more we trust in these systems. And so I'm wondering, also in the context of self-learning AI solutions, so it's another question to you, so Professor Klimmertje. Yes, yeah. So to all of you, to what extent can we rely on synthetic data when it comes to the self-improvement of AI solutions, I'm wondering? or not at all. So.
You can start. You can start.
So you addressed the question to me, yeah? So I start and then you follow. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a good question, and it's a research topic in the AI field. So the research is actually it's one of the challenges that should be overcome, because that's a very natural question that the model has to improve, and has to improve not because of the data or because of some data that can be, for example, synthetical, that can be eliminated, that cannot have this bias, because this it's not improvement, no? It's kind of we can't control actually the changes of this model. It's very difficult. It's difficult to evaluate. It's difficult to understand, to create the metrics to evaluate it properly. So it's very complex. And the concept of self-improving, it actually goes to probably changing of the architecture of the model, that the model can understand its own mistake. It's like the ChatGPT. It's kind of evaluate itself. How good is he performing? So it's basically more or less like we can evaluate, or we can have the human evaluators that can tell us if it was correct or not. That's a bit of investigating this concept in the long term. In the short term, yeah, probably, and that's a good point, that the synthetic data can be a hand in this case. Yeah. And now
Maybe I add two views. So, for instance, when we are creating algorithms for identifying the extent of stenosis in a coronary artery case, right? Yes, we do have quite a few data sets, but sometimes, really those complex plaques and blockers, and we want to really train the algorithm to say, okay, where exactly do you place the stent without disrupting? You can really stress test with a lot of synthetic data. So that's an example where synthetic data is super helpful. That doesn't mean we rely only on synthetic data. Take a non-healthcare example. I mean, if you know about how we're training, or let's say automobile training, self-driving, it's so complex to really train for scenarios like, imagine the traffic light just turned green and an elderly person accidentally just stepped in and let her dog loose, and the dog is now running. And those kind of complex scenarios, you cannot always get enough data. So you can really synthetically generate those scenarios to stress test to be as robust as possible. So those are the scenarios. And then a lot of times, at least for today, I've heard when we think about bias, we think about bias in the data. But one of the areas we really improved when we create our solutions is bias can be introduced anywhere. It can be, if you think of the AI generation lifecycle, it can be in the requirements gathering, if you did not think through really the need properly, if you did not gather the data properly, if you don't have a different training data set from validation data set, if you are, for example, not getting data from the field, the outliers, or if the people are only responding when it's good and it's live, but people are not responding when it's not good, you again get biased feedback. So actually, bias can be introduced anywhere in the AI development lifecycle, and that's one of the things that we are thinking through when we work out the concept for that particular use case. Really stresses all angles where we could be introducing bias, and then think of those synthetic data and so on that we would need to test that, It's getting there, step by step.
Thank you. Any other questions? We have a question here.
Thank you. Yeah, Timo Mintzen, University of Copenhagen, and TUM at the moment in Munich. We talked a lot about bias today. And I'm also asking you, Tina, since you work for a company, what and how far do you consider contextual bias when you develop your products, right? Because often you need very well-trained experts working with the medical device or whatever you have, right? What about, if that works maybe in Boston, would it work somewhere in India in a hospital? And we have to think about that. And how far are you integrating that in your considerations?
I would even expand to many different kinds of contexts besides the global context, right? So I'll give 3 examples. One is, for instance, we had an algorithm, you're looking at patients' deterioration in an ICU ward, right? Really looking at respiratory, cardiac, and all factors, and looking at when is their condition deteriorating such that they might go into sepsis or shock or something. And we realized that that algorithm worked very well in many of the US hospitals and did not work well in Netherlands. And then we had to really think through, oh, we missed certain parameters and so on. Why? Because the underlying guidance and certain policies they followed were also different. So the data we had was different. One example. Another one is even context in terms of when you're training an algorithm to guide like the catheter for cath labs, right? Now, if you don't think of the context, for instance, what is the condition during the procedure, right? Because they cannot maybe hold it properly, there's a nurse standing next. You have to consider all those scenarios when you're thinking about, oh, maybe somebody accidentally pushes their hand, so what happens, right? So those kind of scenarios, other contexts, like the actual clinical workflow setting, you have to understand. And another one may be context in terms of Asia, again, guidelines might be different. So for instance, when we trained, like using ASCO clinical guidelines or ESCO, which is the European, but here, one of the key things is also the trend being, how do you not over-treat the patient, but really treat at the right time. So if the person doesn't need treatment, don't over-treat, right? But that's relevant. We are thinking about that in the Western countries, but maybe not yet in Asia. And it might be that those practices do not have something like active monitoring or surveillance, right? So and if a medtech company, we're thinking of global solutions, you have to understand those differences and then show them very transparently again where it works, where it doesn't work, which conditions have you used. So yeah, many different contexts take into consideration, but when you understand the need and the requirement well, then you start thinking through this with clinical collaboration partners.
Thank you. Any other questions from the floor? If not, and I know it's late and we are over time, so this is a chance to catch up. But to summarize this session, I believe that we can confidently say that the future potential is big, has its limitations. Those are being considered and worked upon where possible, but there is no ideal solution. And as everything in life and medicine, it is a constant struggle to ensure the best outcomes for the patients and the society. And this is something that we all strive to, and this is our mission. So this is how we should also keep. I thank you for your attention. I've reclaimed the 5 minutes that we've taken. So Emilia, please take over, and thank you for the invitation once again.
Thank you very much to the panel members, as well as our moderator, Dr. Vroje Vrasik. Thank you very much. And I hope that you're still there. Are you still awake? Yes, you are. Great. That's fantastic, because now we come to the end of this fruitful day, and it's time now to wrap this up with the conclusion with the Director General Policy Coordination and International Relations Department, Belgium in this Ministry and Social Security, to join us for the conclusion. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Manuel Paolillo.
Well, after all these brilliant minds, what can I say? I will do it lighter. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we close these days full of exchanges and reflection on the future of social security and the assessment of work capacity in the era of artificial intelligence, I want to highlight the crucial role of our collective mission. Together, we've explored how AI can reshape our approaches, improve our practices, and most importantly, how we can use it to strengthen protection and social inclusion in a rapidly evolving Europe. And it's very important, and maybe it's the core message, because we don't have to forget, especially with new instruments, what social protection is about. Elevating people. It's about elevating people. Just think about that. Recommendation from our conference will arrive in the coming weeks, because everything has been registered, so the link will be also sent to you in order that you can see all the video. And with the recommendation, thanks to our team, we will perpetuate the effort of this conference organized by EUMAS under the auspices of the Belgian presidency. And personally, I can say that I will support the creation of a working group at the Belgian level on AI and work incapacity, and that I wish to develop a catalog of use cases on the use of AI in social security. I will advocate to various international bodies to establish this catalog, documenting AI experiments in social security. Today's discussion, from the introductory panel to the experts' intervention on AI and data in social security through the challenges of AI implementation and future perspective, all emphasized a central point: the importance of human in technology. We have heard diverse voices from technology experts, policymakers, practitioners, and researchers, all united by a single goal: to ensure that AI in social security is fair, safe, and human-centered. However, much has been said about AI, and what better way to end than with a dialogue conducted with an AI, to conclude this conference around two key messages. One, a vision for the future. Two, the question of each one's role, AI and humankind. Sprinkled with a puppeteer's reflection. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Belgium is the country of surrealism, so I assume that. And the exercise was recorded to avoid the hazards of live performance, but I can assure you that we had this discussion with the version of ChatGPT-4. I downloaded the program of the conference, and I had a grand discussion with ChatGPT-4. So I have named this discussion Mastering the Puppet, and we will begin. So, hello, ChatGPT. Here we are at the end of our conference on AI in social security and work capacity assessment. What is your vision for the future in this field, incorporating the idea that you are a puppet?
Hello? If I had to choose between being a visionary and a Muppet, I would probably choose the visionary, but with a touch of Muppet to keep things light. I see a future where AI and humanity work hand in hand, AI bringing efficiency and humans ensuring that solidarity and ethics guide our path.
Interesting. And in this future, who is the Muppet?
The idea isn't to suggest that one is literally the other's Muppet, but rather to explore the dynamics between AI and humanity through familiar and beloved characters, for their unique character and interaction within the Muppet Show. Well, if AI were a Muppet, I think it would be a bit like Beaker, experimental, innovative, sometimes incomprehensible, but always well-intentioned. Humans, on the other hand, would be more like Kermit, trying to keep the whole show running with a clear vision.
All right, it seems like a rather dynamic duo. However, behind every puppet, there is a puppeteer.
You are absolutely right. In the Muppets analogy to illustrate the relationship between humanity and artificial intelligence, AI, the implication is that no puppet acts autonomously. Behind every movement, there is a puppeteer who guides and brings the puppet to life. This metaphor underscores a crucial point. Behind every application of AI, there are humans who design, program, and decide its use. These puppeteers are the researchers, engineers, policymakers, and practitioners who shape the direction AI takes. This perspective highlights human responsibility in the development and application of AI. Just as a puppeteer decides the script and performance of a puppet, humans decide how AI is used, the values it reflects, and the objectives it serves. This reinforces the idea that although AI may appear to operate independently, Its actions, goals, and impacts are ultimately a reflection of the intentions, biases, and decisions of the people working behind the curtain. This also means that, just like a good puppeteer can create a show that entertains, educates, and inspires, the designers and users of AI have the power to shape technologies that benefit society, respect human rights, and encourage strong ethics. Recognizing this puppeteer role is essential for navigating the complexities of technological innovation responsibly and ensuring that AI is used in a way that strengthens solidarity, fairness, and well-being in the realm of social security and beyond.
Okay, and what does it make you feel to assert this? Do you think you have free will, or are we given the illusion that it's humans who have it?
As an artificial intelligence developed by OpenAI, I do not have feelings, consciousness, or free will. My responses are generated from the data I was trained on and the instructions given to me by users. I am designed to process and provide information based on language models, without any capacity to feel or experience personal autonomy. When I discuss topics such as human responsibility in the development and application of AI, it reflects the ethical principles and knowledge embedded in my training. It does not come from personal reflection or intention, but rather from a complex set of algorithms that analyze and generate responses based on language. Solidarity is the beating heart of social security, ensuring that no one is left behind. Technologies, especially AI, are tools that can help us realize this vision. Together, they shape a future where decision-making is enhanced, access to services is expanded, and systems are more inclusive. But it is human responsibility, guided by solidarity, that ensures technologies are used wisely.
This is obviously a desirable scenario, which leads me to the question of the vision for 2040. And in foresight, is the discipline of the future, we generally construct scenario by taking foundational principles from system analysis. A few years ago, a group of Belgian civil servants concluded that two principles were at stake, were at the core of the reactor: solidarity on one hand and technology on the other. Based on these two principles, we can have four types of scenarios. That's kind of study of the future. And assuming that the desirable scenario is where technology is high and solidarity is also high, so the desired future there, what would this scenario look like?
Imagining 2040, where the principles of high solidarity and technology guide the future of social security, leads us to a future where technological innovations, especially in the field of AI, are fully aligned with the goals of social well-being and equity. In this future, AI and digital technologies not only transform how social security services are designed and delivered, but they do so with a focus on inclusivity and accessibility for all. By 2040, social security systems could use AI to personalize services based on the specific needs of each individual, ensuring a more precise and effective response to their situations. This includes faster and more accurate health diagnostics, personalized benefit management, and proactive support for people in vulnerable situations. AI could also facilitate the identification and prevention of social risks before they become more serious issues, allowing for a more preventative than reactive approach to social security. Solidarity, as a foundational principle, ensures that technological advancements benefit society equitably without deepening inequalities. This means that investments in technology are accompanied by policies aimed at reducing the digital divide, ensuring lifelong education and training for all, and supporting innovation in both the public and private sectors.
Okay, you are making a second conference, thank you. But how do we achieve this?
To achieve this, a robust and ethical regulatory framework around the use of AI in social security is essential. This framework must promote transparency, accountability, and privacy respect, while ensuring that algorithmic decisions can be explained and contested. This involves close collaboration between governments, technology companies, civil society organizations, and citizens themselves to co-create systems that reflect common values and strengthen the social fabric.
Thank you. maybe a final word for our audience. We are here with more than, well, a little bit less than 150 persons in the conference room, so please.
As we close this conference, I want to thank each of you for your engaged presence and active participation. You are the true pioneers at the dawn of this new era, where technology and solidarity redefine our social fabric. As members of UMass and key players in your respective fields, you have the power and, I dare say, the responsibility to implement the ideas and strategies discussed today.
Thank you to all of you, to the team, to the interpreters. Move forward with the conviction that every action counts. You are building the future not only for yourself, but also for future generations. May the inspiration we have shared here light your way, and may European solidarity guide each of your steps towards a future where AI strengthens our collective commitment to social security and well-being for all. May the journey back home be the beginning of a new stage where the principles and ideas we explored become concrete action. And by 2040, with a desirable future, may we look back at these days with pride, knowing that we contributed to shaping a better world. Safe travels to all, and may the spirit of innovation and solidarity stay with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think the voice already spoke. She thanked all of you for your presence, for your insights as well. I would like to thank you, me as a person, as an individual. I would like to thank you, all of you, for your presence and your insights as well. I would like to thank the speakers of today, the moderators, also you, Mr. President. I would also like to thank the interpreters who have been here all day long to make sure that everyone could hear everything. The people who are also online, who have been following us online all day long. I don't know if I forgot anyone, but thank you for the organization of this event, and thank you for your presence. Once again, I suggest that we just take a drink and we can chit-chat a little bit until 7, I think. Thank you all, and have a good evening.